MMA Oddsbreaker. I'm Frank Trigg. That is the Spaniard, Charlie Brenneman. First, Charlie, welcome back to the UFC. It's
Hey,
been a little bit of a road for you. It kind of seemed like you're one of the first guys that you weren't content, but you were okay fighting outside the UFC, and you just kind of knew that was what was going to take. You had to keep winning, keep plotting around, and just stay in shape. And at some point, you're going to get a phone call, especially with Mike Constantino in your corner, because he always seems to get those random phone calls. Hey, we need a guy at this weight. We need a guy at that weight. Do you have anybody around? And you're back. Did you do backflips? Did you, go? Did you, stand up and yell and scream, or was it like, oh, thanks, Mike. All right, back to practice? I mean, what kind
you
of
know,
day was it?
it's almost like a complete, like both ends of the spectrum. Obviously I'm happy and thrilled, and it's what I've been working for, and all that hard work and what you mentioned. All that plodding around the local level, the regional level. That's not easy to do in every way. Just the psyche, the training, the money, it's not easy to do. So when he called, I was obviously thrilled, but at the same time, it was almost like, yeah, all right, well, that's what's supposed to happen. That's where I'm supposed to be. So I'm thrilled on one end, but on the other end, it's almost like this is just my next UFC fight. And I almost forget that, wait a minute, I've had 4 fights outside of the UFC.
And for the folks at home that don't understand, it's like playing in the major leagues of baseball and
Yeah.
being like in the championships series, and then all of a sudden getting dropped down to A ball, double A, or triple A. And
Yeah.
every week you're getting moved around. You're getting shifted to A ball. Then you're at triple A. Then you're back down to double A. And there's this whole game, and all of a sudden, oh, hey, the major leagues have called me back up again. That's kind of what Charlie's going through. And it really is, if you're used to making a certain amount of money, and the money you make at the UFC, Charlie, is not something that you could live on one fight a year.
Correct.
But the money you make at the UFC compared to what you make at the regional and local level is a completely different game. So from a financial standpoint, how tough was it? Mentally, I know it's tough. Physically, I know it's tough being on that grind. Financially, how was it trying to survive through those 4 fights?
I was pretty fortunate to find a good home. Most of my fights were with Cage Fury here in New Jersey, and the promoter was very fair with us, and we had a complete mutual understanding. So I was fortunate in the sense that I had a somewhat steady pace to go on. Purse wise, it was fair. Consistently, it was fair. So I live as I don't want to say cheap. I'll say efficiently as possible. So.
Cheap,
Yeah,
cheap.
right.
You live cheap. It's all right.
I allotted a certain amount of time based on my finances, based on my wife and my 5-year plan. That all right, this is what I'm allowing myself to do. And if it would have been September of this year and I wouldn't have gotten back to the UFC, then I would have either looked elsewhere or called it a day, because at the end of the day, I'm a grown up, an adult with a family, so I need to provide a living. But getting back to the UFC and having that potential of the payoff, it's awesome. It's huge.
And now with Cage Fury, did they have? You may not even know because you're the fighter, not the manager. Was there a clause in there that, hey, if the UFC calls, we have to let you out of your contract so you can go fight for them?
Yeah, we were very fortunate that with Cage Fury, we didn't want to sign with another big organization because we wouldn't have that opportunity. But with Cage Fury, they were very fair in terms of contracts. I don't know the exact specifics because I just Mike reads and I sign. But the one thing that the comfort and the we had with them was, yeah, if the UFC came calling, then we could figure out a way to get out.
I do know this because I am close friends with Mick Maynard down in Legacy, that he has, and obviously RFA because of Ed Suarez. They each have little riders within their contracts that state if the UFC comes calling, we'll let you out to go to the UFC, but we're not going to let you out to go to Bellator. We're not going to let you out to go to World Series of Fighting, but we'll let you out to go to the UFC if that's who comes calling. My guess is, it's just a guess. I have no inkling with Cage Fury that it was the same kind of thing. If World Series of Fighting or Bellator came calling, you're staying with Cage Fury, but UFC came calling, now you're out and you're able to go back to the big leagues. It's better for a lot of these organizations to be able to do that and go, look, because how awesome is it to go, look, I just had Charlie Brenneman fight for me for 4 fights. Now he's on a main event card for the UFC. Like that's a selling point for them. That they can go, look, guys that come through and redevelop their skills or develop their skills, get them moved on back up top. So And you in Cage Fury, you kind of crushed, like you kind of killed people. It was kind of a, was it
Yeah.
nice to be able to have those kind of victories? I know the training was the same, getting into that fight was the same mental hardship, but you Eric Irving, you had a submission in the second round. Castro submission in the first round. You decision to Atkins, and then Baker, you come back and you submit him in the second round. So, for all in all, it looks like I don't want to say the competition was less, but the competition was better for you to work on some stuff. So, is that what you feel like too?
Absolutely. The reality is, was I fighting UFC guys? No. Could Baker, if he would have beaten me, become a UFC guy? Yes. He's at that level. But yeah, it was a perfect opportunity. Both, the opposition, but at the same time, kind of getting comfortable at 155. Guys in the UFC that drop down a weight class and then have to fight, a big time stud their first fight down, that's not easy to do. So I was fortunate that, I got to have 4 fights. I've weighed in 5 or 6 times at 55 that, that's not a concern at all for me at this point.
Well, let's talk about your next opponent then, Beneil Dariush. Weight's going to be not an issue, so you're okay with that.
Yeah.
What does he bring to the table? What's his style of fighting, and what do you think he's going to try to do to you specifically? Because he's looking at tape on you too.
Yeah, that's always a big question, and it's funny because you have a plan, and then when you get in there and you touch for the first time, then it's either, okay, I'm going to be able to do this plan, or I got to go to plan B. But with him, I've watched film on him the last 4 or 5 days since I've known I was fighting him. Obviously, a really high-level BJJ, more so in the gi than no gi. But with the gi, it's, world-class. He's gone against some of the best guys ever, really, in the sport. His stand-up he's southpaw, he's long and lanky and very unorthodox. To me, I do make a game plan, but I like Jim Miller's mentality where it's, I'm going to worry about me and not worry about him, because the second I start worrying about him, I start acting like not the Spaniard, and that's not what I want to do. I just want to go in and act on instinct. So, I'll be flying on all cylinders, and I'm aware of the difficulties he presents, mostly being with his BJJ. But, I don't care that he's only 6-0. This is in the UFC and this is my livelihood. So I'm going in with that attitude.
What have you worked on the most since you've been outside the UFC? Because it also gave you time to grow as an athlete. Did you spend more time on wrestling, jits, stand up? Like, where were you spending a lot more of your time trying to learn?
I would say pretty comparably with my stand up and with jiu-jitsu. But the biggest thing that's different at 155 versus 170 is I'm going for the finish more at 155, because at 170 I was fighting these monsters. I mean, I was fighting these monsters where once I got them to the mat, it was like at all costs, do not let them off the ground. With guys at 55, I don't feel that, in my head as much, because, on our feet, I feel much more comfortable than the 70 pounders.
And so it does, even though you had that one decision, you still were trying to go for the finish every time I hit the ground. You're looking at, even on your feet, you're trying to go for the finish a lot more too. Do you feel like you have a lot more length? Obviously, you have a lot more power and strength than you did up at 170. Do you feel like your length also, your leverage is a lot of an advantage, is a big advantage as well?
Yeah, I'm at the upper tier of that. I believe that Beneil is about my height and length. But yeah, I mean, I'm going in practice. It's funny to me to look at a 45 pounder and think, whoa, they're only one weight class below me, because I feel so much bigger, stronger, taller, than those guys. So yeah, just the leverage and the brute strength. I haven't really lost a lot from 170. I've just kind of trimmed the edges.
All right, Charlie, congratulations on coming back into the UFC. I know it's believe me, I've been there myself, so I understand how huge it is, and you downplayed it quite a bit. Like, oh, it's just another day of practice, and yeah, you're excited, but it's another day of practice. But I was calling my grandma, calling my aunts, calling my uncles, like, look what I did. Like, it's a big deal, and welcome back. It's going to be a fun fight, and I'm glad it's happening so quickly. And it couldn't have happened to a better guy, because you are a guy that stays in the gym. So it's not like, oh, I got 5 days notice, crap, I'm stuck. Yeah. You get a couple weeks notice, you're going to be okay.
Yeah, I put that pressure on myself on a daily basis to get in the gym, get at least 3 or 4, even in the offseason, get at least 3 or 4 hard pushes throughout the week to know that, 2 weeks, yeah, that's no problem at all.
All right, Troy, thanks for coming on to MMA Oddsbreaker, and we'll talk to you again soon. Good luck, bud.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. Bye.